So this is kind of not exactly a hypothetical situation. This is something that is personal to me. Um, I have a really good friend who, at the young age of 10, was raped by her cousin. She did not know what sex was before this, and her cousin manipulated her into finding out and made it out to be a game. What would you have told her had she conceived?
Okay, so can I adapt? There's a very similar real life case that happened.
Yeah, the Ohio case, is that what
Yes,
you're referencing?
okay,
Yes.
and the whole story didn't get told by much of the media. So what actually happened in that situation, it's exactly what we always say. Rapists love abortion. All right, so her mother took her to an abortion clinic in Ohio where they told her that she was too far along, being at 6 weeks. And they called an abortion doctor in Indiana and they sent her there. The abortion doctor arranged to have the media there ahead of time. And while waiting inside, the doctor was outside with the media because she wanted to make a case out of this. The girl was in there with her mother and her rapist, the mother's boyfriend. The doctor should have known, as we know in these cases, that the younger a girl is, the more likely it is that it's a close family member or a member of the household. And the more likely it is that she's been raped for years, okay? And typically they're much further along because you often don't even know that she's ovulating by then. But when you have a young girl who's being raped for years, they end up with what's called precocious ovulation, okay? Because the hormones in her body are saying, oh, you're of childbearing age, okay, and your body releases, starts releasing eggs. And this doctor could have called Child Protective Services right then and there, could have called the police right then and there, but she didn't because she didn't care. She went forward with the abortion, sent her back in the arms of her perpetrator, back to Ohio for 10 days before a local detective realized, hey, the younger she is, the more likely it is that it's a member of the household. And even after the rapist confessed, her mother begged to have him back in the household and said that there's no way it's him, bring him back, he's paying our rent. Her mother was trafficking her. And this is really what typically happens. We know statistically that every time a girl gives birth, not only does the rape end for her, but for all the other young girls in the household, because we know that the average child molester, from what they've admitted once they get convicted and go to prison, has actually raped 100 children on average. Okay, so not only does it end for her, when she delivers that baby delivers her out of that abusive household where she's being unprotected or even trafficked by her own mother. We want people to care about the plight of the pregnant 10-year-old. I'm so glad you care.
So this is going to be my last thing. But when I brought up that hypothetical to you earlier about a 10-year-old girl who was raped by her cousin, and I asked you what your response would have been to her had she conceived, and you said that you would have encouraged her to conceive as a way to stop the abuse. Is that correct?
No.
I didn't actually answer the question of what I would say to her, because that was your question.
Okay.
That was your question.
No, I don't
was
think she
whether
should have the right to abort her baby. I will answer your question completely directly.
What
I
I
don't
would
think she
say
has
to
the
her
right to
is,
abort.
I'm going to get you protection. I'm going to help you to get safe. We want to hear all about what's going on in the household. What was your mother doing? We need to find out, what exactly happened? Were you being trafficked? Was your mother leaving you unprotected? Is your mother trying to coerce you now? Who do we need to get you free from so that you can be safe and healthy?
Right.
And that's the start.
And on that note, I do understand that because of the no abortions, no exceptions, you would have probably encouraged her to keep the baby as it stood. I was that 10-year-old girl. And I'm not here to change your mind, and because you're not going to change mine, and I'm not going to change yours. However, it's really interesting to note that, in my opinion, this is again my opinion, you would have encouraged me to make a decision that would have absolutely ruined the trajectory of my life. My mother, if you would like to know, is a paranoid schizophrenic that was very absent, and I was manipulated by my cousin. So had I conceived, it's really, really interesting to me that you would have encouraged me as a 10-year-old child that didn't even know what sex was before that day to raise a child, or to give it up for adoption, or to do whatever, but to give birth to a child. Birth can be a traumatic experience. And that's really all that I needed to know, is what you would have told me, a vulnerable child, in that situation.
Can I tell you now, first of all, I think that you matter. I think you're absolutely precious.
Thank you.
And you are really a decent human being.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed, talking to you, engaging with you. And I'm so sorry that you were abused. You deserved 100% to have been protected and treated with love and dignity. And, I think you're absolutely precious. And I'm glad that you're alive and you're surviving. And I'm sorry that you were harmed. I'm also sorry that, a baby died.
I didn't conceive. I did not conceive. I was asking you the hypothetical.
Okay. Well, I don't believe that more violence brings healing. And I think that to suggest that a girl is healed by having more violence in the exact place where she was just traumatized. And the studies actually support what I just said. Rape victims are 4 times more likely to die within the next year after the abortion, because abortions help perpetuate very dangerous and violent situations. They have a higher rate of murder, higher rate of suicide after the abortion, higher rate of drug overdose and domestic violence, and on, because more violence does not bring healing. The women in my organization, and I have a network with Save the One of over 1,200, who mostly women who became pregnant by rape, and those of us who were conceived in rape. And what these women express is that, and there's a book that called I Never Called It Rape, and it's so brave of you to publicly share what you went through. No shame on you.
Thank you.
I mean, it's absolutely no shame on you. I'm not suggesting that at all.
Yeah.
But most women cannot even use the R word. Okay, and there's this book called I Never Called It Rape, where it's got hundreds of women who have gone through this horrific experience. And most women vow never to tell another soul. And what happens is they end up eating it, and they end up suffering, and they suffer in silence. And what the abortion does is it ensures that they never tell another soul, typically. But when they give birth, what these women express is that it gave them a reason to have to finally break the silence and tell their best friend or tell their parent, and they're able to actually then go to counseling and get some of the healing that they never would have otherwise received. And what so many of them say, their words, is that, and these are women who admit that they were initially abortion-minded, okay? And what they'll say is that they felt like after the rape, they felt darkness. They felt death inside of them, okay? And the baby was light. That the baby, when they did not want to engage in self-care, they weren't eating right, they weren't grooming, they weren't taking care of themselves. The baby gave them a reason, when they didn't care about their own health any longer, to start caring for themselves. And that they felt like they had a little angel to keep them company. They felt like they had a co-victim with them. The abortion rate of rape victims is actually half the rate of the average unplanned pregnancy. So you have 50% abort nationwide. That's what it was before Roe was overturned. Only 1% choose adoption. Rape victims, 50% parent, and then between 15 to 25% abort, and 25% choose adoption. So you actually find a lot of adoptees like myself who were conceived in rape, and what these women are doing is they're choosing adoption instead of abortion because they want the child to be raised by 2 loving parents, Okay, and I advocate to make sure that rape victims are protected from the rapist having parental rights. I'm behind the Rape Survivor Child Custody Act federally and nationwide, and I represent women for free. Tons of cases in Michigan to terminate parental rights of rapists. I help find them attorneys all over the country.
And like, sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but I was 10 years old. I was a baby, and I know that we are out of time, but I just would like to reiterate that I was a baby. I was a child, and I did not deserve the weight. I did not deserve the weight of having to carry one had that happened. Absolutely not. And if that would have happened to me, I hope that I would have had a choice. Because at the end of the day, those women that you're citing in those studies are not me. That is not my experience.
Are you against abortion in other cases besides rape and incest?
Am I
Are you
against?
against abortion in all the other cases besides rape, incest, or health of mother? 3%.
I'm pro-choice in any situation. And I believe it is the woman's choice based on her circumstances.
Well, I believe that you should have been protected from the horror of abortion. And I don't believe that more violence is the answer. And I don't believe that a baby should have to die for his crime.